When most people hear the word Vikings, they imagine tall warriors with wild beards, horned helmets, fire, violence, and endless war. This image has been repeated in movies, TV shows, video games, and books for decades. But the real Viking world was very different from what popular culture shows us. The Vikings lived more than 1,000 years ago, between the late 8th century and the early 11th century. They came from what is now Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. They were not just raiders. They were farmers, traders, explorers, craftsmen, and storytellers. They built towns, followed laws, held public assemblies, and traveled farther than almost any other people of their time. Many things we believe about Vikings today are not just inaccurate, but completely false. In this video, you will learn 7 facts about Vikings that most people never hear about. These facts come from archaeology, written sources, and historical research, not from movies or television. The real Viking world was complex, organized, and surprisingly human. And once you understand these facts, you may never see Vikings the same way again. The first thing most people get wrong about Vikings is the most famous image of all. Vikings did not wear horned helmets. The idea of horned Viking helmets did not exist during the Viking Age. Not a single helmet with horns has ever been found by archaeologists. No historical text from the Viking period describes warriors wearing horns. Every real Viking helmet that has been discovered is simple, round, and designed only for protection. Horns on a helmet would have been dangerous in battle. They would make the helmet heavier, unbalanced, and easy for an enemy to grab. A strong pull on a horn could twist a warrior's neck or pull him to the ground. Viking warriors valued mobility and efficiency, not decoration. The horned helmet myth began in the 19th century, long after the Viking Age ended. Artists and theater designers wanted Vikings to look dramatic and savage. A famous opera used horned helmets as costumes, and the image became popular. Over time, this fictional design replaced historical reality in the public imagination. In truth, many Vikings did not even own helmets at all. Helmets were expensive and made of valuable metal. Only wealthy warriors could afford them. Most fighters relied on shields, thick clothing, and speed rather than heavy armor. Viking success came from strategy, teamwork, and ships, not from frightening costumes. Another common myth is that Vikings were dirty and uncivilized. In reality, Vikings were among the cleanest people in medieval Europe. Archaeologists have found thousands of Viking grooming tools, including combs, razors, tweezers, nail cleaners, and ear cleaners. These items appear so frequently in Viking graves that historians believe personal hygiene was an important part of daily life. Written accounts confirm this. An Arab traveler described Vikings washing their faces every morning. Medieval Christian writers complained that Vikings bathed too often and took too much care of their appearance. Some monks even claimed that Viking men were more attractive to women because of their cleanliness. Vikings had bathhouses, washed their clothes, and used soap made from ash and animal fat. They groomed their hair and beards carefully. Some Vikings even bleached their hair to appear blonde, which was considered fashionable. Cleanliness was not just about appearance. Viking homes were crowded and often shared with animals. Poor hygiene could lead to disease and death. Clean bodies meant healthier families and stronger communities. This practical approach to hygiene helped Viking society survive harsh northern conditions. Another surprising fact is that most Vikings were not warriors at all. Most Vikings were farmers. Daily life for the majority of Vikings revolved around agriculture. They grew crops such as barley, rye, oats, and vegetables. They raised animals like cows, sheep, goats, pigs, and chickens. They made bread, butter, cheese, and beer. Children helped with farm work. and families spent most of their time maintaining land and preparing for winter. Raiding was seasonal. A Viking might participate in a raid during the summer and return home to farm the rest of the year. Farming provided food, stability, and survival. Raiding was risky and could fail. Crops and livestock were far more reliable. History remembers Viking raiders because violence creates dramatic stories. Farmers do not, but without farmers, Viking society could not exist. The famous warriors depended on food grown by people who never left their land. Viking women also lived very different lives than many people expect. Viking women had more rights than women in most other medieval societies. They could own property, inherit land, manage farms, and run businesses. They could legally divorce their husbands if they were mistreated. In some cases, women kept their property and children after divorce. Their voices mattered in family and legal matters. When men traveled for trade or raids, women managed households and farms. They controlled resources and made decisions. This level of responsibility shows that Viking society valued contribution and ability more than strict gender roles. Another fact that surprises many people is that Vikings reached North America long before Columbus. Around the year 1000, Viking explorers sailed west from Greenland and reached what is now Canada. Archaeologists discovered Viking houses, tools, and metalwork at a site in Newfoundland called L'Anse aux Meadows. This confirms that Vikings crossed the Atlantic Ocean 500 years before Columbus. They did this using wooden ships, stars for navigation, wind, and deep knowledge of the sea. They had no engines, no modern maps, and no advanced instruments. This achievement alone places Vikings among the greatest explorers in human history. Many people also believe that Vikings could not read or write. This is not true. Vikings used a writing system called runes. They carved runes into stone, wood, metal, and bone. Rune stones recorded names, family relationships, deaths, achievements, and memories. Some inscriptions express love, pride, and grief. These writings show emotion, identity, and a desire to be remembered. Writing played a role in trade, law, and religion. Viking society valued memory and reputation. Carving a name into stone was a way to exist beyond death. The final important fact is that Vikings were not one single people. The word Viking describes many different groups. Norwegian Vikings explored west across the Atlantic. Danish Vikings focused on England and Western Europe. Swedish Vikings traveled east into modern Russia and beyond. Each group had its own customs, laws, dialects, and traditions. The word Viking likely referred to an activity, not an ethnicity. It meant someone who went on sea journeys, especially for trade or raids. This explains why Viking influence spread across continents. When we remove the myths, Vikings do not become less impressive. They become more real. They were clean, organized, literate, curious, and adaptable. They farmed, traded, explored, and built societies that lasted for generations. The real Viking story is far more interesting than the fictional version, and this is only the beginning. If you want to continue exploring the real world of Vikings, including their food, gods, homes, and daily life, stay with this channel. History is always deeper, stranger, and more human than the stories we are told.